So we've caught up with one of the, I would say, stars of Gamescom this year, because I think you put on a terrific show last night, and you were at the center of it, and really highlighting what I feel is the strength of the PlayStation brand. And I guess that's what you think as well.
Yeah, we were really thrilled to be able to display so much innovation last night. There were, and obviously a big focus on PlayStation Vita. We had a great show at E3, I think, but heavy emphasis then on PS3. And we felt it was time just to focus a bit more on PlayStation Vita, and we were very pleased to do that.
What was the thought there? Because it felt a little bit like you sort of left Vita behind at E3. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, you only get you got about an hour and 10 minutes at these shows, and you've always got about 3 hours worth of material to fit in. And I think there was a real desire to unveil some real blockbuster IP for PS3 at E3, and obviously The Last of Us, Beyond, and also most importantly the Wonderbook franchise. And maybe with hindsight, maybe Vita did get left behind a little bit, but I think we put that right yesterday.
So speaking of the Vita, it's had a little bit of a trouble selling, I would say. I don't know how the situation is in Europe. Maybe you can enlighten us on that. But how do you sort of describe the situation that Vita is in right now?
Well, we had a strong launch, and we were very happy with the launch performance. And I think it's fair to say that in most markets things have been a little quieter since then. And I think that's not unrelated to the fact that there really hasn't been that much top software released over the course of the last couple of months. Now we went to great trouble yesterday to demonstrate that is going to change. Starting next month with Little Big Planet on Vita, and then following up with FIFA, with Need for Speed, with Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, and of course Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified. So we're very excited about the prospects for Vita this Christmas.
And I also think that, and correct me if I'm wrong again, but it seems like you're making more of an effort now to sort of convince PlayStation 3 owners that getting a Vita is a really good idea. You got the CrossBy initiative, you got PSN Plus is coming to Vita as well. You're trying to sort of make sure that those core users, those PlayStation fans, are now picking up a Vita or making more use of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, and they're a very logical place to start, because first of all there are lots and lots of them, and then secondly, we know that they're bought into the PlayStation proposition. We know that they like gaming, so they're the first place we should be looking to get people interested in PlayStation Vita, and that's exactly what we're doing with the things that you just spoke about.
So you had a title called MotorStorm RC that came out on PSN and PS Vita, playable on PlayStation 3 and PS Vita. You have Sound Shapes now, and now you're adding some of the larger retail products as well. What's the strategy moving forward? Is this something that you want to do for every game, or is it going to be the appropriate ones, and what goes into those sort of strategic plans?
Well, it's the latter. First of all, this kind of cross-functionality between PS3 and PS Vita is something that we definitely believe in. However, it just doesn't. There are certain games where it just doesn't make sense. There are certain games which only properly work on that sort of format, and other games equally that are designed for Vita which wouldn't work on a large Bravia television. But so we basically take a game by game approach and just work with the development people to sit down and marketing guys, development people, and figure out what approach works best for which game.
And this, of course, are Sony games. Will this extend to third parties as well? Is that something you want to promote?
It's something we're very happy to encourage. We'd like third parties to really embrace the cross functionality between the various between the two formats. And Ubisoft have done this with Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. There is crossover with the PS3 game. And we're very happy to help Ubisoft to achieve that. But ultimately, those decisions reside with the publisher and developer. So, but we encourage and we help to whatever extent we can.
Feels like this fall for PlayStation 3 owners is a little bit more family oriented than perhaps the last couple of years. You're almost concentrating it this year, I would say. Is that what's the plan behind that?
Well, it's quite it's a natural evolution, and it's certainly one that we've experienced in the past with PS1 and then PS2, and what tends to happen as time passes, consoles become more affordable, and therefore more likely to appeal to the family market, and if that does happen, it obviously makes sense to have software that equally appeals to that family demographic, and I think that's what we've done this year. Best example is Book of Spells, but there will obviously be there are obviously a number of others. That shouldn't be interpreted as any way that we're neglecting the core market. If you go back to E3, we had God of War Ascension, Beyond, and The Last of Us. I mean, all of which are killer core market IPs. So it's a question of sort of balancing between the two different markets.
So moving forward, Wonderbook, of course, is a big investment, and you're really putting weight behind this. Where do you think that this sort of concept will sort of go in the next few years?
Well, I think it was interesting. At E3, we unveiled Book of Spells, and then yesterday we really started to sort of paint the bigger picture with the Moonbot partnership, with the BBC thing, Walking with Dinosaurs, which I think looked like it could be really, really interesting, and then a sort of tease of the unveiling of the relationship with Disney. And there are many other discussions ongoing on Wonderbook, and I think the next time we meet, something that started like that at E3 has now got bigger, and it'll be something like that by the next time we meet. It'll gradually unfold, and it'll snowball.
Because I think it's interesting how you sort of, because when Move was introduced, it felt like it was a lot of games were sort of casual, just play around with your friends and that sort of experience. But now you're bringing out Until Dawn, which is something completely different, and sort of turning on its head a little bit what you expect from a Move title.
Yeah, and we're going to be really intrigued by how that goes. You're right. I mean, the majority of games developed for Move have been kind of party stuff and dance, sports. And I think to have something that really is quite core gamer in its nature, it'll be really intriguing to see how it works. I was very excited. I thought the video was great, and from what I hear, the game is looking in very good shape.
So you also talked a lot about sort of merging every aspect of PlayStation, and you got the PlayStation Mobile coming out as well. Where do you sort of see sort of PlayStation in 10 years? Do you think it's just going to be a brand that stretches across any number of different devices, or what's core to PlayStation?
Well, 10 years is a long way away, and I'm not sure I'm going to make any predictions about that. I think what I can say is that the kind of historic days of these very closed platforms, which are kind of like silos, that's changing gradually. Whether it's within the category of video game platforms with the connectivity that we now see between PS3 and PS Vita, and this becomes possible when you have connected devices. PS2 wasn't a connected device, PSP really not a connected device, but PS3 is, PS Vita is. So you have the ability for these two devices to talk to each other and do the sorts of stuff that we've been discussing earlier, and that in itself sort of breaks down these silos, the barriers between the platforms that have existed historically. And I think that's one thing, and that will continue. And then equally, I think you're going to see the PlayStation brand be very prominent in places like PlayStation Mobile, where the client device is not a PlayStation console. It's a tablet or a smartphone that is not necessarily a Sony tablet or a Sony smartphone.
Is that a sort of difficult company culture thing? Because Sony's always been so much about hardware.
It's challenging because not in terms of actually working with these other companies, but it's really more around changing mindset from this very sort of quite straightforward closed world that we used to live in to something that's much more open, where there are basically no rules, and that's quite a challenge. People have to just change the way they think, but it's fun. I mean, doing new stuff is always fun.